Welcome to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. On today's program, where we're going to be Samar and I are going to be discussing Israel's repeated violations of the ceasefire and peace plan that Trump had signed, and most recently the strikes that had killed over 100 people in Gaza, including 46 children. And they, say that it's a pause in the ceasefire, but they're continuing the ceasefire. So is it really a ceasefire or not? We're also going to be discussing a alarming story that happened over the weekend where a British journalist and political commentator named Sami Hamdi was arrested on his way to Tampa to deliver a keynote speech at the CARE conference or banquet here. He was arrested by ICE despite the fact that he was allowed to enter the country legally and permitted to enter, but then they arrested him. Some people saying abducted him from the airport, and he's still in custody. And critics are saying that's because of his speech of criticism of Israel. What's going on with that, and also other things in the news. So we'll be right back. This is True Talk on WMNF. I'm going to play one of my favorite songs now.
عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين الو 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 يا عمري وينك الو يا شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وين الو الو سلم لي عالحبيبة عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين الو يا حبيبتي نعرف اللي طالت غيبتي ليا ضحكوا على شيبتي وشيبة ولا تشيبة ما حبوا تيبتي بس تستنى في خيبتي والأرنبة طلعت ذيبتي وشوفنا منهم خيبة قالوا يا الغالية شلز شباب على إيطاليا البحر وامواج والعالية وغرقين وغرقات وحمام وجالية ذات يميني وشمالية وفكري كان في المالية الوحش كبر يا الأخوات الو 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 يا عمري وينك الو يا شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وين الو الو سلم لي عالحبيبة عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين.
This is True Talk on WMNF, the True Talk podcast, and we're broadcasting actually live. And if you're listening to us later on your streaming platform or on the WMNF website, then hello and welcome back to our show. Samar, the song is called Allo Allo by Balti. He's a Tunisian rapper. Do you understand the Tunisian dialect?
Not very clearly, because the dialect of Tunisia, Morocco, Libya are affected by the occupation that they had. For instance, in Libya, they were occupied by Italy, and both Algeria and Morocco and Tunisia were occupied by the French. And plus, they do have the Berber culture and Amazigh culture. So no, not easily.
You always bring it back to occupation. It affects even the music.
Affects the music, but
and the language.
The language, because, for instance, the British mandate did not, for instance, when it was occupying Palestine and Egypt, they kept the schooling system. They didn't interfere with Egyptian Arabic language teaching. They added English. But when it came to, for instance, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, the French would ban you from teaching the local language because they want to make you francophone. They want to erase the the Arabic language and replace it with French language because with language also comes culture.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
I know even though in Egypt, um, where my family is from and where I was born, the um, the British occupied Egypt much longer than the French did. The French had a short, like I don't know, maybe it's 3 years, but French had had more of an influence on the education system in Egypt than the British did, and even on certain culture, even though they were, there for a really short time. So those previous empires and occupiers actually had, it wasn't just taking over the land, but they had this agenda to, like you said, change the actual culture, change the language, influence, and you see it also in South Asia, in India, Pakistan, that area, the influence of the British system there and how it impacted their language. But in this song, Allo by Balti, he's basically, he's saying Allo, like that's how they say hello, like when you're making a phone call. And if you watch the video, he's holding his hand to his face as if he's calling someone, but he's really calling himself or calling, he's saying like, I guess he's calling his life and saying, "Oh, my life, where have you gone? Oh, my youth, where are you?" And then he's kind of contemplating life by calling different aspects of him. Kind of interesting. So, Samar, is there a ceasefire or not? Because yesterday, Israel paused as if it's some sort of video game or some movie. They paused. They said they paused the ceasefire. They did all these massive strikes for hours that killed over 104, like 104 people or more, including 46 children. That doesn't sound like a ceasefire to me. It seems like the continuation of the genocide and ethnic cleansing.
It depends which news you're listening to, because if you're listening to our mainstream media, you would say like, of course there is a ceasefire, but just like what they did on Thursday in Khan Yunis, I mean yesterday, 10 airstrikes and like you said, killed more than 100 people and mainly children. If you go to Twitter, it's very difficult these days to post about Gaza in this storm of labeling Mamdani as a anti this and anti that. That's another subject we can talk about later on. But Ahmed, you can see actually the footage of the babies and kids, whether under the rubble or in the hospital. So you have to really search and pick. You have to go to WMNF that plays Democracy Now! In order to find out that there are actually more than 100 civilians that were killed. And again, you don't understand what happened, why this happened. And of course, everybody labels
All
Hamas. But
right.
there is
But
one.
what was their justification, like their excuse for doing
They
this?
said that some fighters shot or attacked a tank, something like that. I am really not
But
clear.
I heard, I mean, Trump, when they asked him, he said, "Oh, they killed an Israeli soldier," and he says, I support them that they should attack." But does he actually get the news? Does he actually know what the consequences are of these attacks? How many people? And is it even true that a soldier was killed, an Israeli soldier? And how? Because last week they did the same thing where they claimed that Hamas violated the ceasefire, and they did some strikes back then. But it turned out, and the U.S. stepped in and said, no, we know that, that was your own mistake. I guess one of their soldiers or their contractors drove over a mine or something that they had planted and exploded and blew up their vehicle, but it was not an attack as they were trying to claim, and they put a stop to it. Is this just another, fake thing that they're saying?
It could be I mean, it's very difficult to have a communication going on between Hamas members. So let's say that yes, it's true that uh, some Hamas member found in front of him an Israeli IDF and shot him and killed him. Let's say it's true. Do you
Which
go?
they're denying, by the way. I think they're denying
Yeah,
that they
they
did that.
say, no, because there are so many booby traps and it's a very dangerous environment. And
Mhm.
so many Palestinians actually are dying because of the leftover mines. But
That the Israelis put in
yeah.
place.
So, and ammunition that did not explode, uh, rockets that did not explode. So you would step on it, not knowing under the rubble that there is something there, live ammunition. Anyways, but let's say, Ahmed, it's true. You go and kill 100 people, most of them
Well,
50.
that's been the equation. For every Israeli killed, they have to kill 100 Palestinians. It's just the value that they place on an Israeli life themselves is that these are God's chosen people. They're so unique, and that for every Israeli life you have to eliminate. It's ridiculous. Nobody's investigating. There are no journalists there, foreign, outside journalists that can confirm any of this. And oftentimes the media just repeats the allegations as if they're somehow true.
The Associated Press managed to, I mean, I'm not sure if it didn't send somebody, but took probably footage that it commissioned of a car just driving through the streets of Gaza, and like millions of people looked at it and watched it because they posted it on the different platforms, but in particular on X. And it's like as if it had to come from the Associated Press in order for people to realize the level of damage and destruction in Gaza. But there is a news item, Ahmed, that slips, yeah, even our not mainstream media, but alternative media. But there is a statistics by the Medical Relief Association that says that there are 350,000 diabetic patients in Gaza, and they are receiving zero follow-up because of the collapse of the health system, which Israel made sure to destroy these hospitals. And imagine, according to this health organization, it says 40% of kidney patients have died because of the lack of dialysis, the few dialysis machines that are operating is not enough to keep with the demand. So I'm thinking, Ahmed, also of what slipped from this piece of information. How many people have high blood pressure? And okay, if your blood pressure is 200 for a couple of days, you'll probably have a stroke and die. Or if you have a stroke and survive, how do these people are alive? I have no idea.
Yeah, I
So
mean, imagine, people that have diabetes that are listening to this know. Imagine your situation where you don't have, it's basically torture, and it's just inhumane. And this is why I don't like to call it that, oh, humanitarian aid hasn't been going. No, nothing has gone into Gaza almost for this, since the beginning of this year, which is just brutal. It is, you can't do that to a population. Just starve them, not allow any medicine in. We're in 2025, and this is happening under our watch. And yes, there is supposed to be a ceasefire there, but Israel's not allowing the food trucks, the basic necessities that they promised would go in, which they need something like 600 of those full semi trucks daily to provide some sort of relief. And they're only allowing something like 80 trucks. And on top of that, they have these gangs and militias that, yeah, they are Palestinians, but they are working and collaborating and are on the payroll of the Israeli government. And they operate from within the Israeli territory to attack and loot and cause mayhem inside Gaza and to the civilians there.
Here is another statistics that I just received this morning, Ahmed. About 192,812 buildings have been either completely destroyed or almost destroyed and cannot be rebuilt. 828 mosques have been completely destroyed in Gaza. So imagine all these people saying, Bil Maher, saying, oh, Christians are being killed here and there, and Christians cannot practice their religion in Arab countries and Muslim countries. Okay, what if 828 churches have been destroyed in Egypt and in Tunisia and Morocco and in where else? Kuwait has churches, Bahrain, 828 mosques, and then 6,600 hostages have been taken from Gaza. And they are, that's after the war started and throughout the past 2 years. You have 531 dead in Gaza. You have 1,061 Palestinian dead in the West Bank where there is no Hamas and no fighting going on. 1,061. You have 9,034 Palestinians wounded by the IDF in the West Bank, where there is no war, no Hamas. So there is a systematic ethnic cleansing going on every day, every hour, every minute, but unfortunately, our media are not talking about it. Did you know this statistic, Ahmed? Did you know 828 mosques have been destroyed in Gaza?
No, I didn't, but I knew they basically destroyed most of the infrastructure. I mean, they haven't, very few buildings are actually still standing. It's a massive demolition. And that's why this whole lie that, oh, we're out to destroy Hamas or get the hostages back, I never believed it, because a lot of the times they're either killing just civilians or destroying buildings. Just everything. And in a way, you saw all these videos where not only through airstrikes, but after they clear an area and people are not there, they would also go in and they would, put bombs or explosives all over the buildings, and then, detonate it to demolish the buildings and bring it to the ground. And there was another story maybe that slipped, is that there's Haaretz had caught, this is an Israeli media outlet, has filmed or has footage and published footage of Israeli soldiers taking debris or garbage from their bases and trash and other debris from bases within Israel borders, within the Israel area, and moving it into Gaza and dumping it there, like as a dumping ground. Now, because of the ceasefire, Israel has withdrawn, not out of Gaza, but let's say to like 50%. So now Gaza, which was already extremely very small and the most densely populated area in the world, the people are now inhabiting about 50% of what they used to inhabit. And Israel withdrew to what they call the yellow line, which is a perimeter that separates basically the people in Gaza from Israel, which was the wall. So within the wall, I forgot how long that area is, but it's a fairly large area. But they're taking this trash, and they're dumping it within Gaza itself. And then somehow when they were asked, they said, well, this will be cleaned up by the international force that's supposed to come in and rebuild Gaza. So you're adding more of your own trash. I mean, it seems like some people would say, well, that's petty compared to all the lives. But this is just adding insult, to injury by just as if it's always somebody else is going to take care of their problems. And now somebody else, the international force that's supposed to come in from Egypt and Turkey and Qatar and other places, they'll do our cleanup for it. They'll even take our trash for us. And that's just how ridiculous their behavior is. And they call it the most moral army. I mean, people listening to our show may be thinking, well, this is bash the Israeli Defense Forces and criticize them, show or what? Daily, this Israeli military is carrying out war crimes. Daily, they're carrying out massacres and demolition, and they're not being held accountable. And the media, most of the media is not talking about it. And if anyone that does is, oh, you're anti-Semitic. Why do you hate Jews? No one is talking about Judaism. We're talking about Israeli soldiers that are breaking international law, that are working for a wanted, fugitive criminal who has an arrest warrant for him, and that's Netanyahu. And it's just surprising that there are still people out there that, are defending this behavior, including people like Randy Fine, the person that used to, the congressman that's serving from the East Coast of Florida. And it seems like a lot of these individuals that are in our Congress, that now people are calling them Israel first. Instead, these are Republicans, and they're not only exclusive Republicans, but because Trump has this motto, America first. Well, Republicans have coined that are against what Israel's been doing are calling them, no, you guys are Israel first politicians. You're serving the interest of Israel. And you would see like people like Ted Cruz, and most of their work is about Israel and somehow defending or protecting the state of Israel, getting them more weapons, getting them more aid, attacking Palestinian, whether Palestinians or Arabs or anyone that criticizes them under the guise of, this is anti-Semitism.
Ahmed, there is so much news that we need to cover, especially what you told me over the weekend. Do you want to talk about it? Because it's...
Yeah, well, we can get into that now. Sami Hamdi, a prominent British, he happens to be Muslim, British citizen, journalist, political analyst, political commentator. He sometimes comes on tour in the United States and speaks at different events. So apparently he entered the country on October 14th. And, as a British citizen, you don't need necessarily a visa to enter the United States. But they have just like Americans, they don't need a visa to go to Britain. But there is this, you have to fill out like an application now before you enter. And you fly in. Once you're approved, you're allowed to fly. And once you enter, they permit you into the country. Now, if you're permitted through the border, whether you're a tourist or a business person or you're coming for school, or the United States now, they permitted you. There is like an obligation that, you're allowed to enter. You're allowed to come into America. You'll be safe in America until you leave, as long as you don't overstay. Now, this is something that ICE has been doing, and we saw it with some of these student protesters last year, like the ones from Colombia, etc. Even though they're in the country legally, the day they go, abduct them or arrest them or detain them, they inform them on the spot, oh, your visa has been, revoked. Well, you never notified them before that their visa was revoked. Now, years ago, their system was, when somebody's visa either, is being revoked or canceled, they notify, immigration services would notify the individual and give them some time, like say, 30 days or whatever to leave the country. But they give you notice. You don't, you're not just like out shopping thinking that, okay, well, I'm in the country legally. I was permitted here. I have a visa. I'm valid. I have in status. And then they just, all of a sudden, somebody just comes and picks you up without any notice, disrupting your whole life. And that's what they've been doing lately. People that they don't like, or they don't like what they're saying, which, by the way, they're trying to argue that as visitors to the United States, you don't have First Amendment rights. Others are saying, no, that's not the case. As long as you're here legally, freedom of speech also applies to you. And so while he was here, he was, doing some different speaking events. On Saturday night, last Saturday night, he was speaking at a CARE banquet. CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations. It's a civil rights organization mainly focusing on Muslims' rights in America. So he's speaking at their banquet. And the next day, Sunday, he was supposed to speak at the banquet in Tampa. And he spoke in California and went to the airport Sunday morning to board his flight. Before he boarded his flight, ICE detained him, and then they informed him that your visa is being revoked. Well, you never informed him before. But but this has come because of a lot of people are pointing to a couple of Israel First, very Zionist bloggers and online activists that, people have, said about, and I don't want to say their names here, but, they said these people are deranged. They're just like wacko. They've been banned from, at least one of them has been banned from all the platforms before because of, her hate and the anti-Muslim Islamophobia that she spews on a constant. Like for the past 10 years, this person has been dedicated to just smearing and attacking Muslims everywhere in the country. So because of, they've been tweeting about it and tweeting at the DHS and ICE, urging them to arrest or detain or deport Sami Hamdi. And somehow the government listened to them and agreed. And they went and picked him up. So, nowadays, people are worried that, okay, if you get on, if you say something they don't like, and these activists, online activists that are just working for the state of Israel, start, tweeting about you and creating this online mob mentality and urging ICE to arrest you, then ICE just acts upon that, which is just simply ridiculous. And they're the first people, those bloggers, to come online and take credit for it and say, oh, it's because of us that we got him picked up, and it was a win and they're celebrating it. So now he's still in custody. In fact, when I told you about this story over the weekend, Summer, you said, oh, we should have him on our radio show. And I said to you, that's if he's is still in custody, in prison.
So why didn't they just deport him? Why is he in custody? Well,
they don't do that anymore. Like before, whenever you get deported, like, the maximum, especially if you're at an airport, that you'd have to, spend overnight and wait until your next flight to your country. And he's from Britain to send you back. But no, nowadays, they become vicious. They hold you, I don't know under what pretense. Sometimes they even deport you to a different country that you're not from. Some people that ended up in El Salvador are not from El Salvador. And some people that they want, they want to, for example, deport to, I don't know, some countries in Africa. Is it Uganda that they're talking to or somebody?
Angola? Yeah, I think Uganda.
Yeah, you may not be from Uganda. So that would have been unheard of before, that they deport you to a country that you have no connection to and that you're stranded there. How are you going to get back home? And some of these refugees that are seeking asylum, I mean, this is a different topic. Sami Hamdi is not a refugee. He's a British citizen. He has his passport. Britain is our ally. Anyone from Britain can come to America. It's not, unless, you're a criminal or something. And he had been coming. But for people that are seeking asylum or they have a problem in their home country, whether it's political or whatever, they can't go back to their country. So now you send them to a completely different country that they don't speak the language and they may languish in their prisons. It's just so awful what they're doing. And a lot of these people say it's just to punish people for speaking out. And actually, we have a clip that somebody had posted saying, well, this is the reason why AIPAC and the Israelis went after, because definitely Sami Hamdi was not a threat to the United States. And finally, the Department of Homeland Security is claiming that he is promoting terrorism, that he is, that's what they're saying the justification is, and that he is aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood. They did not provide any evidence of that. But one of the last interviews that he did, which was released, I believe, Friday or Saturday before he was detained, on a podcast called The Thinking Muslim. And they posted some clips from the interview saying this is why AIPAC had Sami Hamdi arrested. And I guess when they say AIPAC, it's like all-encompassing of, also their activists. But I wanted to play a clip of that, if you don't mind. And so people could just hear for their own words what he was saying. And immediately after that interview is the reason why he was picked up. And he's still in custody today. Now since Sunday, today's Thursday. So is that okay? I'm going to play this, and then maybe we'll get your reaction. Okay. And if we have time, we'll take some phone calls also. This is Sami Hamdi, just last week.
Every citizen of any country who loves his country, who loves her country, who wants to see the benefit of their country, who wants to help the poor in their country, who wants to help those struggling in their country, who wants to tackle homelessness, unemployment, and medical bills, and the like. Anybody who loves their country will vote for the one who puts their country first, and not a foreign country first. That they will vote America first, not Israel first itself. It's not that I'm saying that they should vote on party lines. Whichever party candidate pushes the line that you should focus on the woes and ills of the city that you live in. Homelessness in LA, where we didn't go to Beverly Hills. I should have shown you Beverly Hills itself. You'll see all these tents that are in these parking areas, and they're not hippies, they're homeless people. You could have the money to resolve it, but you're giving it to Zionists and the like who are insisting on Israel first. It's that anybody and any American citizen, regardless of their faith or religion, has the fitrah in their hearts of justice first, justice for all, for everybody, whether they are white, black, Muslim, Jewish, and which is why you're seeing that Jews in New York are voting for Mamdani, because they see the message of justice that he is promoting with regards to America first itself. It's why you see Muslims fundraising for Marjorie Taylor Greene on the other side, saying that we believe she has the interest of America first, the interest of our locality and our area first, and also the interest of humanity in the sense of calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and saying we shouldn't support genocide. This is not an election on party lines. The midterm elections are not Democrats versus Republicans. The midterm elections will be Israel first versus America first, and it's in the interest of Muslim Americans that America first wins over Israel first. I think one of the things that is worth noting about America, having been here for a while and seen it, is that the Americans have always been amenable to listening to different ideas. They have a society where they have the freedom of speech, and they're willing to entertain and debate and listen to new ideas. The problem was never that the Americans had a natural aversion to the Palestinian cause. It's that the Zionists spent so much money putting barriers between that voice and the Americans, and imposing filters between the Palestinian voice and the Americans. Because what we realized with social media and the decentralization of information is that you put a girl called Samantha in Los Angeles, and you put her in direct contact with somebody in Gaza through TikTok, where she sees the image directly. When Samantha sees it without filters, and when she sees it without the lobby imposing those filters, what happened to Samantha? Her opinion completely flipped. So she was never averse to the righteous cause of the Palestinians. She was never averse to the cause of justice. She was just not allowed to hear it by AIPAC and by the Zionists. She was never allowed to hear it by the Zionist allies. And whatever she heard of the Palestinians was the result of a 5 or 6 filters that information had passed through that eventually resulted to her over here. That's the extraordinary thing, because it reinforces the idea of fitrah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or God, when he creates human beings, puts that natural affinity for justice in the people. When you think about it, what made American public opinion shift? No one brought an army and coerced them into changing their opinions. No one held a gun to Candace Owens' head or to Tucker Carlson's head to make them say the things that they're saying against Zionism now. No one put a head to Dave Smith's head, and told him he needs to, change his, ideas and policies or the like. I noticed some people use the video of mine in Kuala Lumpur almost to say to Dave Smith, your views are wrong and look how people like Sami are celebrating. My point is not that anyone forced Dave Smith. My point is, in that video, is that because we delivered the truth as it was, and because we showed what was happening, because we screamed about it, when Dave Smith saw it, his heart naturally inclined towards justice. When Candace Owens saw it, her heart naturally inclined towards justice. When Tucker Carlson saw it, their hearts naturally inclined towards justice. Ted Cruz can't say anything because of all of the AIPAC money that comes towards him. But these other souls that are free, literally, and debating the issues as they go along, you don't need to agree with everything they say. But that justice flipped it. That's the shift in public opinion. And as a result of the shift in public opinion, it's now being translated politically, where a candidate for Massachusetts comes out last week and says, I've returned every money that I've collected from AIPAC, and I've returned it, and I'm no longer taking any money from AIPAC. Not necessarily because he cares about the Palestinians. He's aware that Zionism is a political liability that might make him lose the election. A representative in North Carolina, I think a congresswoman, she came out and she said, I will not take any donations for AIPAC, indicating the shift in public opinion in North Carolina means that if I'm seen to be too close to the Israelis, I will lose. We've now seen that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's coming out and saying that Israel has to register as a foreign agent, and Republicans in Congress now watching her seat in the midterms to see if she keeps her seat. If she keeps her seat, they will say, wait a minute, you can survive even after defying Zionism. Then maybe we don't need to keep following this Zionist babysitter who follows us, as Thomas Massey stated in that Tucker Carlson interview. AIPAC appoints a babysitter for the Congress, Republican congressman, to ensure they vote Israel first instead of America first. We're seeing Mamdani now leading in the polls over Cuomo, and Cuomo being lambasted by his own supporters for talking too much about Israel, for talking too much about what's happening in Gaza, as opposed to Mamdani, who's talking about New York. And Mamdani's America First policy, I call it America First, where he talks about New York and the rents in New York, means that Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets today and says, why would anybody go and vote for Cuomo? She's not endorsing Mamdani. She says, why would you vote for Cuomo, who's not interested in New York, who's not focused on America First itself? That America's interest is not war. And this is true, by the way. America's interest in the region is not war. It's important to remember that the Muslim states don't have a problem with trading with the Americans. They don't have a problem with exchanging with the Americans. The only problem they have with the Americans is the military bases, the bombing, the slaughter, the killing, and the interference in regime changes and the like. Something that the right wing is now saying, we don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that as Americans. If that America First trend wins over Donald Trump, practically, that results in a healing of the relationship between the Americans and those Middle East states. It's Israel that loses while the whole region and the Americans gain. And that's why I think that the right wing has turned against the Israelis, because they've realized that if they pursue an America First policy, and this is not an endorsement from my side, an America First policy means let's just all work within our interests and let's all keep the peace and trade and the like, and we won't interfere with each other, which is what the Arab states want. Everybody gains except the Israelis. So the one who wants to ruin it for everybody is the Israelis. And there's a growing concern amongst those around Trump, amongst some of them, that Mr. President, the reality is you could make peace. The problem is not the Saudis or the Qataris or the Turks. The problem is actually the Israelis.
So Sami, are you saying that in Georgia you would ask and you would request and you would suggest to Muslims that they should vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene?
It's not my place to tell the Americans how to vote at all. And I'm going to decline to answer whether they should vote for this person or this person. That's an issue for the Americans, and I respect the American right to choose who they decide to vote for or not. I think what I can say is that, according to the Zionists, the worst case scenario that can happen in the midterm elections is that Americans vote America first instead of Israel first. And by America first, I think what the Zionists are really concerned about is that America first is not just Republicans, it's also Democrats. You think about it, for example, Mamdani, according to the Zionists, is an America first candidate. Cuomo is an Israel first candidate, which is why the Zionist lobby and those who support the Zionists are supporting Cuomo against the America first candidate, who is Mamdani. The Zionists are concerned that whereby their lobby has been able to establish a situation whereby Biden can ignore people becoming bankrupt over medical bills and give 14 billion not to those struggling with medical bills but to Israel instead. The Zionists are worried that in the midterm elections, Americans might actually vote for candidates who will vote for America first, whereby 14 billion doesn't get given to the Israelis to commit genocide. It gets given to people to help them with relief on their medical bills to ensure they get healthcare treatment. What the Zionists are concerned about is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came out against the Zionists to say that we should focus on American homelessness, we should focus on American medical issues, we should focus on American housing and these issues, leading her to resonate with America First Mamdani, showing that it transcends party lines. It's not only Democrat and Republicans. The Zionists are concerned that Marjorie Taylor Greene's America First message will resonate far more deeply than the Israel First message that AIPAC are spreading with these AI videos when they're trying to assert why Israel is so valuable to the Americans. What the Zionists are concerned about is that when Trump sees that Marjorie Taylor Greene wins her seat because she asserts America First over Israel First, that Mamdani becomes mayor of New York because he asserted America First over Israel First, that Omar Fatah becomes mayor of Minnesota because he asserted America First over Israel First, that Abdurrahman al-Sayed in Michigan wins his seat in the Senate because he argues for America First instead of Israel First, even though he's a Democrat. What the Zionists are concerned that when Trump sees, or the president sees, that the common denominator is not Republican Democrat, the common denominator is America First, it will lead a president who puts his own interests first to pursue America First over Israel First. You remember when Donald Trump said about when he asked Miriam Adelson and said, do you love Israel more or America more? Yeah. And that was almost like a dig at Miriam Adelson, because he was saying publicly to the American people that when she gave me the money, I was wrestling with her. She was saying you have to be Israel first, and I was telling her you need to be America first, indicating there is a rift between Adelson and between Donald Trump. And he said that in the Knesset itself, almost like a subliminal message to the Israelis that, listen, you need to find a way to align Israel first with America first. It's not for me to comment on who people should vote for or not. That's as somebody who's not American, that's not for me to say. What I can say is that the midterm elections will not be about Republicans versus Democrats. It will be America First versus Israel First.
So that was Sami Hamdi, a British journalist and political commentator who has been detained by ICE on his way to Tampa, Florida to speak at an event here last Sunday. The Israel First crowd is online on Twitter are attacking, saying that, he's a terrorist sympathizer. He supports and praised October 7th attacks. And they pointed to a video that seemed to have been edited selectively by this anti-Muslim, pro-Israel website Memory to make it appear as if he's praising the October 7th attacks. But I think there's a lot of context that's missing there. I don't believe he was actually praising the attacks themselves, but praising the Palestinians in Gaza for being resilient. Did anything surprise you about what he's saying here?
No, I think he is extremely articulate, and my God, he just is on a roll when he speaks. His style is convincing, and his influence on Americans can be very influential.
And I think he's also influential on Muslims, as far as, people that he's become a very popular speaker.
Yeah, very popular speaker, because I never heard of him except when maybe a few months ago, actually just before our presidential elections, and he was asked why not vote for Kamala Harris. And, an American was interviewing him, and he says, it's the only hope, because if Trump comes, blah, blah, blah. And he went on a passionate, maybe 10 minutes, talking about what would be wrong if Muslims voted, if Americans and American Muslims voted, and Americans. But he in particular was talking about Arab Americans and Muslims if they voted for Kamala. And that's
but he was not urging people to vote for Trump either.
No, but he was talking about their conscience. And he wasn't talking about the average American. He was just talking about specifically Arab Americans, number one, and two, Muslim Americans. And why would he have a moral issue? And he talked about the genocide. However, it is very dangerous, Ahmed, if like a number of these so-called influencers who are not America First can just put your name or my name or anybody's name out there, and they have the ear of the president or the ear of the administration or the ICE, and just work on either deporting them or stripping them of their citizenship. Because I think you sent me a short segment
Yeah. On
of,
Pierce Morgan,
yeah,
Stephen Miller's wife, of course, Stephen Miller, you know him as he's the deputy chief of staff, a very powerful position. He is the architect of the Muslim ban in the first administration. Now he's in the second administration as the deputy chief of staff. His wife was on Pierce Morgan. I guess she's trying to be more public, and she is, one of these Pierce Morgan debates where there's so many people, and she doesn't like what one of the other panelists was saying about Israel, and he said she basically threatened him and said, "You better watch out. You better check your citizenship application." Now, Cenk, the person from the Young Turks that was on there, I think he's been a citizen for something like 30 years.
more
And
than
she's
that,
saying,
Ahmed.
or
Much
more
more.
than that. I don't know. I don't know how old
He
he is,
was
but
like
for
a few
decades.
years old when he came to America.
Right. So I mean, as a child, and she said, you better check your citizenship application. But there's a lot of crosstalk, meaning like, because that's one way that this administration now wants to depopulate or get rid of critics of Israel, get rid of people they don't like that are not natural born citizens, meaning naturalized citizens. They want to strip them of their citizenship. And she said to him, in frustration because she was losing the debate, it was obvious that she's losing, and said, you better check your citizenship application. And something like Ilhan Omar, maybe they're also trying to go after Ilhan Omar, which they are, to try to strip her of her citizenship. But they're also trying to do that with Zohran Mamdani. And people are, they're introducing they sent letters to immigration services and some members of Congress saying there's only a few days left. You got to strip him of his citizenship before he wins. So because anytime they're losing, if nothing else works and it's a citizen, they want to strip that person of their citizenship. It's really scary. What if they don't like what you're saying, Summer, and they start saying, well, we want to strip you of your citizenship?
Exactly. It takes one tweet or one thing, or if they just find out if our show becomes even more popular than that. But it is what's so sad and bizarre, Ahmed, is that both the Republicans and the Democrats are united in fighting Mamdani. I mean, the Democratic Party could have supported him and supported the young generation. They are afraid of the young generation in their own party that have rallied behind Mamdani, and they're trying to use anti-Semitism scare tactics. And you have Jewish Americans all over X showing Ahmed, I am American Jew living in New York, and I voted now for Mamdani. So whatever they try is not working with the young generation. It is galvanizing them, and rather than rally around the young future of the Democratic Party, they are fighting Mamdani and fighting them. So it's really bizarre and sad.
Yeah, it is bizarre. Carla just sent us an email. And she's saying, Carla from Palm Harbor, a couple of questions, Ahmed. And my name is spelled Ahmed, by the way, not Akmed. There's no K sound in my name, but the H is like a hat. And Americans don't know how to pronounce it, so they
that's
often
why hummus
think it's
is Arabic.
That's why that's why they call
hummus is not Israeli. If you cannot pronounce hummus, you cannot claim it.
Yeah, they don't have the ha in there, but that's why they call it Hamas. Well, yeah, I'm not Ahmed, I'm Ahmed, but I understand Carla is a nice person. But she said her question is, I don't understand how everyone calls the conflict a war between Israel and Palestine when the Palestinians are never shown fighting and it is so one-sided. Do they have tanks, guns, planes? Question mark. The strangest thing is we never hear how many Israelis have been killed and injured. Why? No, the Palestinians don't have tanks. Yeah, they do have guns, but they don't have planes. They don't have like heavy, and the guns they have are not heavy guns. They're just like rifles. They do have these makeshift rockets that are not precise. And oftentimes, we hear that, like, oh, they're shooting these rockets that, they don't, and they're targeting Israelis and they're not precision, they're not precise. And I heard one of their, like, Palestinian leaders at one point said that if we had these high sophisticated weapons and planes, we wouldn't be just, sending them. This is all we have. And that's we're using whatever we can get our hands on. Obviously there's a blockade there. So yeah, they don't have the heavy equipment and tanks and things, but they have rifles and they have things that you can basically carry. As far as how many Israelis were killed, well, you don't offer because it's so lopsided. Very few Israelis compared to Palestinians have been killed throughout this conflict, especially when it comes to children. October 7th was an exception to that, but Palestinians have an October 7th every day since October 7th. Like the people are dying, tens of thousands, some say hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been killed. And so, yeah, so there
There's
were
another
there
message.
were civilians that were killed on October 7th, but from the numbers that I've seen, the majority of those that were killed were actually soldiers. And some people have said, and there's evidence, including the Israeli media themselves, that Israel carried out the Hannibal Directive, where the Israeli military shot and killed their own citizens to stop them from being abducted and taken as hostages into Gaza.
Thank you so much, Carla, for the wonderful questions. And I think Michelle sent a message saying how wonderful it is to listen to Samar and Ahmed talk about the Middle East, because Ahmed, these things we discuss, sometimes you don't even hear it on Democracy Now, the only show out there that can be talking about these issues. You and I are the only ones who will be bringing this information.
Conversations?
Yeah, conversations and statistics, and like the clip you played with Sami Ahmed. I mean,
Sami Hamdi.
Hamdi, I heard it for the first time. So thank you. I did not listen to this one. Very articulate, still in prison. He was going to be in Tampa, in our backyard, in our neighborhood. And then
He was so dangerous. His speech is so dangerous that they had to arrest him.
But the
Is this
banquet,
but you
banquet
notice,
went on, yeah?
yeah, the banquet went on and it was successful, and they actually raised more money than even expected. They exceeded their expectations because it moved people. Like, look, if it could happen to him, it could happen to any of us, and we have to stand up for our rights. But even in that last interview that he did, Sami Hamdi, he was talking and praising how America has this free speech. I'm sure you heard that he's basically, because of this free speech, people's minds, people are listening, people are changing and their minds about what's happening. And American people in general, if they hear the truth, they're going to shift. And that's what Jeff is saying. He says, this is a great show today. And he said, our guest is absolutely hitting the nail on the head. He's not a guest, actually. We were playing from his last interview, which was last week.
Have him.
We were going to try to have him, but he's right now in jail because of what he was saying. And he's been picked up by ICE, and he's a British citizen, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And he said, Jeff goes on to say, this is the exact problem today, and that there is a shift. As he says, this gentleman is an excellent speaker. The biggest problem in America is the knee-jerk pandering to the Zionist faction of the Israelis, which he describes. And he says a prime example is the new appointment of the Zionist propagandist Barry Wise. Yeah, Barry Wise, she is a Zionist propagandist, and she's now the CEO of CBS News. And this is, because it was purchased by Larry Ellison, the richest man in America, or one of them. And now he is also going to be the one, or the new owner, one of the new owners of TikTok, because they could not stop what was being spreading on TikTok. Now they're going to try to muzzle it and put pro-Israel propaganda on there as well. I believe they signed a deal today in China during that meeting. Is that Was that correct, Summer? Because I didn't
I
see
am
that
not
news.
sure. I haven't
It
followed
was
the
one
news.
of the things, yeah.
That they would keep it running and not ban it recently. But I think soon we're running out of time. And I wanted really to talk about J.D. Vance and what he said yesterday
Oh,
about,
yes, I had that clip ready to also play, but
yeah,
we're out
maybe
of
we'll keep
time.
it next week, maybe, Ahmed, because
John said that he wants to remind people that Muhammad Ibrahim, a 16-year-old from Florida, is still in Israeli prison in the West Bank, and we should call your State Department and Congressperson immediately to demand his release. For 8 months, he's been there and he's lost over 25 pounds. This is unacceptable. He's 16 years old. This is not how we, and he's in Israel. He's an American.